Welcome. My name is Aminata Diop. I am the Executive Assistant to the Dean at the School of Education. On behalf of the City College of New York School of Education, I would like to welcome you, whether you are joining us in person or online, with a conversation with Chancellor David Banks. At this point, we would like to start the program. And to start us off, I would like to have Provost Lees on the podium.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. It's very nice to see you here in the Great Hall at City College of New York. City College of New York was founded in 1847 as the Free Academy and as a great experiment in public education. The first president of the college, Horace Webster, said when the college opened, "The experiment is to be tried, whether the children of the people, the children of the whole people, can be educated, and whether an institution of the highest grade can be successfully controlled by the popular will and not by the privileged few." This year marks our 175th anniversary of that great experiment, which has proved so consequential for generations of New Yorkers and for the city itself. We still live by those words of Horace Webster, but for a very long time now, we've known the answer to the question that he posed. And the answer is a resounding yes. City College has proven to be an engine of social mobility, a place where brilliant minds from all walks of life, from up and down the socioeconomic scale, from all over the world, come to hone their skills and go out into the city and into the world to drive its incredible economic and cultural richness. City College ranks in the top 10 in social mobility by the U.S. News and World Report, and Wall Street Journal has ranked us as the #1 best value college. I'm not a big fan of college rankings, but when you rank in the single digits, it's okay. Our students look different than they did 175 years ago, or even 50 or 20 or so years ago. But in many important respects, they're the same. Children of immigrants, children of marginalized groups, often the first in their families to go to college, bright kids who are bursting with potential and ambition. Most of them graduates of New York City public schools. The demographics have changed, but those characteristics are as true today as they were 175 years ago. More than 150 different nationalities are represented on our campus. More than 90 different languages are spoken here. The incredible richness of that environment, which you can find on virtually every CUNY campus around the city, is one of the most important parts of the education our students receive. Sitting side by side with people who are different from you, from different backgrounds, different countries, different experiences, that's what prepares you for success in the world. Taking advantages of all those different outlooks and experiences is the way we have to solve today's problems. The experiment that Horace Webster talked about turns out not just to be successful, it turns out to be absolutely essential for our success. City College has graduated 10 Nobel Prize winners, 1 Fields medalist, 1 Turing Award winner, 3 Pulitzer Prize winners, 3 Rhodes Scholars, and 1 New York City school chancellor, Mr. David Banks. And we're honored to welcome him here tonight. Our incredibly rich student body comes from mostly from the New York City public schools, the largest school system in the world, not just in the country, but in the world. And that's why we're so excited to begin a partnership with our own alum, Chancellor David Banks. And now, to give you welcome from the School of Education, I want to turn the microphone over to Professor Andrew Ratner.
Okay, greetings. I'm here to speak on behalf of Edwin Lamboy, Dean of the School of Education. Unfortunately, he can't be with us today due to the passing of his mother. From Puerto Rico, he sends his regrets that he could not join us, and we send him our thoughts and prayers. Just days before my own college graduation in 1989, I came across a flyer. It was posted outside of the Student Union, and it read, "Teach in New York City Schools." And I decided on the spot that that was exactly what I was going to do. Teach in New York City schools, English to be specific. That summer, I made my way to 110 Livingston Street, where I spent a morning filling out forms, waiting on lines, and taking directions to various offices in the building. And then I returned in the afternoon and did the same, and I came back the next day and did it some more. And finally, on that second day, I got called into one last office, and I was directed to sit by the desk of a gentleman who, to my younger self, appeared to represent a school system veteran who was close to retirement. He signed a dot matrix printout of my license and file number. Those of you who know what a file number is. And then he handed the document to me. "Good luck, son," said the grizzled veteran. And he showed me the door. And he said, "I hope you succeed where we have failed." That was his parting words. Even if I still believe that he meant well, he sort of said it, I think, in a nurturing way, kind of feeling sorry for me, the younger me. It was less than a rousing welcome to the profession. 33 years later, I found myself in a Harlem restaurant seated across the table from a very different gentleman. He appeared neither grizzled nor anywhere close to retirement. He was David Banks. And it was the eve of his official announcement as the next New York City Schools Chancellor. President Boudreau, Provost List, and Dean Lamboy were in attendance, as was Professors Bob Lubetsky and Hazel Carter of the School of Education's Educational Leadership Program, where under their tutelage, the soon-to-be Chancellor earned his advanced certification in school district leadership. We had gathered to celebrate the occasion and to get the read of a man whose policies and practices would not only impact 1 million or so public school students, but also New York City-based schools of education like our own. Deep into the dinner, and admittedly a glass of red wine, I chose a lull in the conversation to ask what seemed like an appropriate question at the time, but in retrospect may have been a bit impertinent. And excuse me if it was impertinent, Chancellor Banks. For me to ask you, he's wondering what I asked him. What I said was, I believe, you were successful and fulfilled in the position you left. Why on earth do you want to step into one of the most challenging and unforgiving jobs in the city, maybe even the entire country? And I don't remember your exact response, but the sentiments have stayed with me. Where I was incredulous, you were certain and assured. Where I was a bit snarky, you were humble about the enormity of the task before you, yet optimistic that it could be done. Indeed, it had to be done. In essence, your answer was, how could I not take the job of New York City Schools Chancellor? You were born in Brooklyn and raised in Southeast Queens. You attended New York City public schools. You left a career in law to teach alongside New York City teachers, later serve as a principal, and ultimately create and serve as president and CEO of the Eagle Academy Foundation, an acclaimed network of public all-boys schools geared to Black and brown youth who are often poorly served by the public school education system. And you learn from these experiences that improving schools requires sweeping changes, not just playing around in the margins, as you said. But at the same time, Chancellor Banks, you know that the gaggle of fourth graders racing into school with Pokemon book bags swinging on their backs, eager to embark on the next stages of their insect study, they are your children. You know the English teacher who pulls and prods and opens minds and hearts of high schoolers to the magic of great literature over an 8-hour day, only to return home with a stack of essays to be greeted in the evening. You know her. She is the neighbor who gets her coffee at the same deli where you get your coffee each morning. You've seen too much magnificence in the schools and communities that feed them to write them off. or disparage them as needing to be saved or fixed, like some enormous kitchen appliance. You understand that public school students, educators, and families are not in need of a repair shop, but rather a DOE that is imaginative and collaborative, that is not blind to the need for change and improvement, but recognizes and deeply respects our many and varied strengths and accomplishments, that sets and maintains high expectations for us, but also provides the guidance, resources, space, and most importantly, conviction that we can meet those expectations. So there you have it. 33 years apart, I had encounters with individuals who had lived the ins and outs of public education in New York City, the former marked by cynicism and resignation, the latter imbued with hope, commitment, and genuine respect, and dare I say love, for those who attend, send their children to, support, and work in our public school system. And not only is Chancellor Banks a CCNY School of Ed alum, but also New York State Commissioner of Education Betty Rosa, who earned her Master of Science in Administration and Supervision here. It seems that we hit the jackpot. But, as Spider-Man said, much is expected of those connected. Spider-Man didn't say that. I made that one up as I was walking up here. So to end, speaking on behalf of the City College School of Education, we are proud and we are honored that they are both graduates of our institution. More so, there is a palpable sense of excitement that individuals who share our vision for education is now at the helm of the largest school system in the United States, and I just learned in the world, indeed. It is a vision of preparing and supporting individuals for sustained, fulfilling, and highly effective careers as teachers and leaders, particularly in schools and communities that need them most. It is a vision where students of our diverse citizenry are ready to meet the challenges of the 21st century and to be active participants in our democracy. It is a commitment to education as a moral endeavor that can enhance the human condition, realize possibilities, and make the world a more just place. To this end, we uphold and extend the college's historic mission of access and excellence for the children of the whole people of the city of New York. We so look forward to fulfilling this vision together, Chancellor Banks. Thank you, and may I now present Professor Bob Lubetsky from the Leadership Program here at City College.
Because I'm as old as dirt, I can remember 24 chancellors. Scary, right? Most of the time it mattered not who they were, as their impact on what I was able to accomplish with my students in a classroom was light years from their influence or even their concern. Very different interaction that we've had, and I don't just mean as a teacher and a student, but there's a real connection and a belief that I think we all share, that's been articulated very well by Professor Ratner, that this is a moment when things will happen for the benefit of the students of New York City who've been so long disregarded, taken advantage of, and not well educated. In Chancellor Banks, we have somebody, as I think you heard Professor Ratner explain, who is committed to shaping the experience that young people have, particularly students of color. For 8th graders, the percentages, and you know this well, but this may come as a shock to those of us in the audience, the percentages passing and functioning on grade level were 14% for black students, 18% for Hispanic students, and even more troubling, less than half of white students met the proficiency bar. So across the spectrum, our system is not benefiting students, and our students are not being educated. We look to you in the hope that things will change and the belief that you will make things better. It is both an honor and privilege to introduce the new school's Chancellor, David C. Banks, a graduate of our program.
Good evening. It's certainly my pleasure to be here with all of you today. I want to, first of all, acknowledge Provost List. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here. Your Deputy Dean Ratner, please extend my deepest condolences to Dean Lamboy for his loss. And I certainly appreciate your remarks by way of introduction. And I certainly enjoyed the dinner. I don't know that I had a glass of wine, but several of us did, and we had a great time nonetheless. And I really want to say a very special acknowledgement to not just Professor Robert Lebetsky, but someone who I refer to now as my friend, Bob Lebetsky. You know, I knew that I had a good chance of becoming the chancellor of the school system because I'd known Eric Adams for over 30 years. And I think 2 years before he ever announced that he was running for mayor, he said, if I ever get to be mayor one day, I need you to be my chancellor. And my response to him was, absolutely not. I had no interest in being the chancellor. You know, I think anybody who's ever been a good New York City school principal has always had people in your orbit who've said, one day you could be the chancellor. So that is not unique to me. You either had teachers in your school, your parents, and they've said, you're great, one day we need you to run the whole school system. But Eric came to me and said, I visited schools all over the city, and I've even visited schools around the country. The work that you're doing, particularly the work that you do at Eagle Academy, is exemplary of everything that I want to see happen in this system. And I said, I'll help you find somebody that can do it. And I'll do my best to just kind of help out. But I was doing just fine. And my life, when I reflect on my life and what brought me to this moment, in many ways, I see it as divine and divinely ordered, if you will. I had never taken a teaching course in my life prior to becoming a teacher. I was an engineering major at Rutgers University for 2 years, and then I switched to political science with the intention of going to law school. And at that time, as I graduated from college, baby number one was on the way. And I said, well, I'm not ready to go to law school just yet, and so I just need a job. And the first job that I took was as a school safety officer in Brooklyn, Clara Barton High School. And Brooklyn girl, right? And Clara Barton High School provided an opportunity for me to wear the school uniform of a school safety officer, which, when I think about what's going on today and how much school safety officers themselves have kind of come under attack in the public narrative, it's very interesting that I was in that place and space, and I think I was there for a reason as well. And then after that, I decided, well, maybe I'll teach for a little while. I have no intention of being a long-term teacher, but I'll do that for a couple of years as I get ready to go to law school. And in order for me to do that, I wound up meeting with the superintendent in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, and I wound up going to PS 167 in District 17. And I was a first-year teacher. And I want to tell you, some of the greatest years of my life, working with those kids where I taught primarily 4th and 5th grade, and learning from some of the best teachers in the school who taught me how to be a teacher. Linda Alper, not even 5 feet tall, white woman, but who was like a little general in the classroom. And she commanded the attention of any child that was in her room. A woman that when I reflect back on her practice, I said, if every one of the students in New York City had to go through Ms. Alpert's class, everyone would be proficient, everyone would be focused, they'd be dedicated students. She was that good. She's an example of when you have great teachers, the transformative effect that they can have on all of their students. And I knew it because I had had a teacher who had a transformative effect on me. Her name was Mildred Scott. Mildred Scott was my teacher in the 4th and 5th grade. She was not my regular classroom teacher. She was what many of us knew back then that we called cluster teachers. She had a very specific subject that she taught, and she'd visit our class a couple of times a week. And she taught Black history. And what she exposed me to transformed the level of consciousness that I have in everything that I do today. Because it was in Miss Scott's class that I learned about Paul Robeson and Marcus Garvey and Harriet Tubman. I learned about those from my culture who came before me, who prepared a place for me, who opened this pathway for me to be successful, but not simply to be successful for success' sake, but for me to be successful because I had a responsibility to those who were coming behind me and to support those from my community. And I felt that deeply from the time that I was a child. And I thank people like Mrs. Mildred Scott for setting that example for me, for being that beacon and that light. And what I've come to realize is that for so many of us who've had any level of success in our lives or in our careers, we had a Miss Alper. We had a Miss Scott, Mrs. Scott. People who were teachers who soared above even some of the other teachers perhaps that you had, and they had a real impact on how you experienced school and more importantly, how you saw the world. And without even knowing it, they were shaping my path as I was moving along through my life journey that brought me to a place like this. But there were many other milestones along the way as well. I went to law school at night while I taught during the day. Because again, I'd said I was going to be a lawyer. And I did not want to get completely distracted. But you should just know, I was living in Jersey City at that time. And I was teaching in Brooklyn. And I was going to St. John's Law School in Queens. Yeah, you're talking about trying to just, the hardest way you could possibly think to do it. But it gets better. 2 weeks before I started my first legal methods class in law school, guess what happened? Somebody said baby number 2. How about baby number 2 and 3, twins? I mean, if you're gonna make it hard, you might as well just go all the way. And then as I finished up law school, in my 4th and final year at night, baby number 4. And so having raised 4 beautiful children, the proudest things that have ever happened to me in my life, and the sense of pride that I have, my son, my oldest son Jamal, who was in Washington, D.C. and has given me 3 grandchildren, and 3 granddaughters who I don't get to see nearly enough. My son Ali, who works for the Transit Authority, his twin sister Aaliyah, who is a teacher at the original school that I was a principal of, the Bronx School for Law, Government, and Justice, who one day may be the principal of that school. How great would that be? And my baby boy, who is a writer and a sports enthusiast, and I love all of them. I've been very, very blessed in my life, but I've also been extremely blessed beyond my personal life in my career and the career choices that I've made. And I became an assistant principal in Brooklyn, and I had the great fortune of taking a class with Dr. Kathy Cashin, New York State Regent, who was teaching at Brooklyn College. Now, here's what I want to tell you before I get into that, because it all comes together, trust me. When I finished my teaching because I graduated from St. John's Law School. I went and worked for the New York City Law Department. And then after that, I went to work for the New York State Attorney General's office. It's a guy named Bob Abrams, who used to be the Attorney General in New York, and then he was succeeded by a guy named Oliver Capel out of Riverdale. And I had great experiences there, and it was wonderful. But yet, I realized that my life's calling was still working with young people, and I decided that I wanted to come back into education, even after having put in all that time and become a lawyer. But I needed additional certification in order to do that. And I went and I met with the head of the program at Brooklyn College, a guy by the name of Tom Montero, who told me, as I came to his office right before January, and I said, I want to be in a school in September. I have 1 semester to complete my administrative licensing. He said, wait a minute, you need 30 credits. You can't get 30 credits in 1 semester. I said, yeah, but I called the state and I found out that you only needed 24. He said, well, that's not a lot easier. We're not going to let you walk in as a non-matriculated student and get 24 credits in 1 semester. But here's what I'll do. I'm going to give you your internship as part of your course credits, and we're going to give you 9 other credits. You're going to get a total of 15. So you're going to be 9 short. You have to come back for another semester to finish up. I went home that night, and I was really depressed about it because I said, I wanted to do it all in 1 semester so that I could be in a school in September. Otherwise, I've got to wait until the middle of the next school year. And I woke up in the middle of the night with a voice in my head that said, who said you had to take all 24 credits at the same school? That's what I woke up saying. I called the state again, and they said, well, that's highly unusual. They said, but, and you have to make sure you're not duplicating courses. I said, but let me do my homework on this and see if I can put it together, and I'll bring it back to you, and you let me know if you approve. Making a long story short, I wound up going to City College, Brooklyn College, and Baruch College at the same time as taking my internship, and took 24 credits in 1 semester, putting myself in a position to go back to District 17 as an assistant principal. The reason why I'm offering you that story is not just to tell you about the deep connection that I have to CUNY, and I wouldn't be here had I not had that experience, but I also offer it up lots of times to young people because, we tell young people all the time, you can do anything that you put your mind to, which for a lot of young people is just rhetoric. But when you can offer up real examples around the things that you did, where you had a challenge in front of you, and you were able to overcome that challenge, and you were prepared to put in the work and make it happen, then, in fact, all things are possible. And I did that, and I became an assistant principal for 2 years in Brooklyn. I loved it. It was great. And then I got the opportunity to be the founding principal of a school in the Bronx, a school called the Bronx School for Law, Government, and Justice. It was the original urban assembly school. Many of you may be familiar with some of the networks of schools. The urban assembly has about, 24 schools right now in New York City. But the original urban assembly school was the Bronx School for Law, Government, and Justice. And by the way, there was a young lady who was working there as a very young intern who they said, why don't you take her with you as you open this school, and maybe she can help you get it open. And she was about 20 years old. And eventually I made her a teacher and my assistant principal. And then when I left, we made her the principal. And after that, she just kept on moving right along and eventually became my predecessor, as Chancellor, Misha Ross Porter, who in many ways was like my little sister, who I had working with me from the time she was 20 years old. Small world, indeed. The years that I had at Law, Government, and Justice were absolutely phenomenal, amazing. I loved working there. I've been so deeply blessed to have jobs that I couldn't wait to get up every morning to go to work. And the only reason I left that school was to become the founding principal of the Eagle Academy for young men. Now, the Eagle Academy was the brainchild of the organization 100 Black Men. And I've been a long-time member of the 100 Black Men. 100 Black Men was started by people like David Dinkins and Congressman Charlie Rangel and Percy Sutton and Tuskegee Airmen, Roscoe Brown. These were the men 60 years ago who created this civic organization of professional men who provided a level of leadership and civic responsibility back to our community. And we've now got 100 Black Men chapters all around the world. But in New York City, the very first chapter, we came up with this idea to create a school for young men of color. A public school. I'm going to stress that. It's not a charter school. A lot of people thought that we were a charter school. But we wanted to show that you could create a model within the traditional public school system that would work and work to benefit the young men who are at the bottom of all the indicators of success. Columbia University put out a report that said 75% of the inmates from the entire New York State correctional system came from 7 neighborhoods in New York City. Now you think about that. Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Albany, the entire state, 75% of all the inmates, not only did they come from New York City, they came from 7 very specific zip codes in New York City. The prison pipeline that we all know about, we've heard about, we've seen panel discussions and conferences, we've seen all kinds of white papers and books that have been written. But it seemed like the most that you could hope for was a good after-school program for maybe 25 kids. Like, that's as good as it was going to get. And we had a level of intentionality that it could be different. And that was the reason why we created the Eagle Academy. And the greatest work that I think I've ever done in my life was the work that we did. By bringing a level of hope to Black and brown boys in a system and in a culture that doesn't value them, that doesn't often lift them up, where they're surrounded by assault on a daily basis from various realms. And we leaned in to make a difference. 2 of the gentlemen who helped us to get the Eagle Academy started joining me here tonight for a bit, Aaron Barnett and Thomas Owens. Would you brothers just stand up? I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for all the work that they have done on behalf of other hundreds of staff members who helped us to build the Eagle Academy. It's important that I tell you that, because I'm not simply the chancellor. I'm a chancellor who stands on a body of work that precipitated my becoming chancellor. And it's a body of work that was not simply about my achievements. It's a body of work that was representative of the village and the community, which I adore, coming together to make a difference and to say, in spite of all the challenges, we believe. And if it doesn't start with that, you really don't have much of a chance. You can play around on the margins of success, but if you want transformative success, you have to start with an abiding, deep belief in the power of possibility. That is who I am. That is why I know that my being here today is no accident. I was meant to be here at this moment in time. I'm 60 years old. I have been a teacher. I've been a school administrator. I ran the Eagle Academy Foundation, where we took that work that we did in the Bronx and we took it to every borough in New York City. We took it with Thomas out to Newark, New Jersey when Cory Booker was the mayor and asked us to go out there. We have 6 schools with over 3,000 young men. We graduated 2,000 and sent them to colleges and universities all across the nation, letting those young men know that in spite of the public narrative that they see every day, that if you believe deeply in yourself and you've developed your talents and your skills, you too can go on and achieve all that you were meant to achieve. And not only, again, for yourself, but to make sure you never forget where you came from, and that our community needs you, our city needs you. In fact, our nation needs you. This nation cannot be all that it is supposed to be when we leave so much wasted human potential on the sidelines. We've got to get everybody into the game. That's what I believe in very deeply. That's what I'm bringing to this chancellorship. And so as I was tapped to be the chancellor, people would congratulate me and were so happy for you. I said, don't be happy for me. I was fine. Be happy for the young people that I'm going to fight with everything that I have on their behalf. But when I say I'm going to fight for them, I don't just mean in the physical or even emotional way of, I believe deeply that I'm going to fight for kids. I'm going to be very strategic around how to do battle for our young people. And part of that strategy means, how do we engage and invoke the village? This fight cannot be fight on the back of a chancellor, as though all the answers, we're relying on you to provide all the answers. If that were the case, that is a losing battle at the outset. What I intend to do as chancellor is to engage in strategic partnerships that will help to provide a pathway to success for so many of our kids. What am I ultimately trying to do? As we take our students through a kindergarten and even earlier than that experience, all the way through 12th grade, before we hand them off to institutions like City, I want to ensure that every young person that goes through this experience graduates with a post-secondary plan, graduates on a path to economic prosperity, full of life and potential and the power of possibility. That's what I'm ultimately trying to achieve. I don't want to take young people through a K through 12 experience where they did really well in going to school, but have no clue about what life really means. Don't possess the skills to take a part in this 21st century economy. Don't have the skills that they need, not only to enter college, but to persevere and to graduate from college. I want them to come out assured that they have everything that they need to be truly successful. So that's where I'm trying to go. That's the mission for this system under my chancellorship and working for Mayor Adams. Now, how are we going to get there? There are 4 pillars that really represent the underpinnings of this vision that we have. And so let me just explain them to you at this time. And in no particular order, but I'm going to start with the reimagined school experience. We are taking so many of our young people through a school experience which, as Professor Lebetsky said, we have failed them on so many ways. When I became chancellor, my second day in office, I got out of my car right in front of Tweed, our headquarters, and there's a gentleman who's standing up with a sign in front of the building. And I was told that this gentleman had been standing in front of Tweed with this sign for 10 years. And I went over to him to speak to him because the sign said, if you would just teach the kids to read, it would solve a lot of the problems. And he stands out there every morning for 10 years. And he said, I just want you to know, I said to him, I totally agree with you. 65% of black and brown children never achieve proficiency in this system. And yet we spend $38 billion every year. We ought to be ashamed. $38 billion, and we can't even ensure that the kids know how to read? He said to me, if you would just do that, it solves so many of your problems. You're spending billions of dollars on all of these other things that you're trying to fix something that if you got it right in the first place, you wouldn't have to, you could use your money more wisely. And he said, and by the way, I just want you to know, I've been out here for 10 years. You're the first chancellor that's ever come and said a word to me. Think about that. See, people looked at him and probably said, oh, he's the crazy guy with the sign. So we discard him. Much in the same way that we discard a lot of our kids every single day. Or that he's a kid from Ocean Hill, Brownsville, growing up in the projects, you know, he likes to fight, you get discarded. This is the little girl in foster care, you know, she's got a whole lot of issues. You get discarded. You know, we do really well at discarding people in this system. I want to change that because I believe that every child has absolute brilliance, potential, gifts, that it is our obligation to manifest that. And even if they didn't possess any of it, who are we to discard anyone? We were given these roles and this responsibility to make a difference. And that's a difference that I intend to do. So providing a different focus on literacy is one of the areas we're going to be making a major investment in. We've gotten away over the years from an approach to reading that I think we made a mistake. And we went to a whole language approach across many schools. While many of us in this room who went on to become successful learned to read through a phonetic approach to the teaching of reading. And yet, 25 years ago, we engaged in a whole lot of other ways to do it. And I don't think the research has come in now and let us know we missed it. We missed the mark for way too many kids. Because if you don't ensure that kids can read no later than the 3rd grade, all of the research shows we will be spending billions of dollars playing catch up after that. And many kids never catch up. So it's really about ensuring what I call bright starts. But the bright starts are meant to ultimately achieve bold futures. And those bold futures for me are about creating career pathways for young people. When young people understand that one day you could be an investment banker, they move differently. If they know that one day you could work at Google or Microsoft, you could work in the biotech industry, you could be a scientist, an astronaut. When you know the possibilities for yourself, it changes how you move on a daily basis. When we look on the news and see kids engaging in crazy, ridiculous behavior, gang violence, and running around like chickens with their heads cut off, those are kids who are living in darkness. There's nothing wrong with them. We've not turned on the light to possibility for them. Because if you think one day that you could in fact be the senator for New York, I don't have to tell you you shouldn't go join a gang. You don't have to be reminded of that when you see the light. But when you don't see the light and you're just running around in the darkness, everything is crazy. So what is our job as chancellor? It's not for me to dictate from the halls of Tweed and tell everybody what they're supposed to do. It's to create an ecosystem of support where people create their own aha moments from the bottom up. And when you look at industry all across the world, industry that is most successful, the solutions, the creativity, the innovation is always created from the bottom up, never the top down. Tweed has a culture, even when you go as far back as 110 Livingston Street, which is we sit at the top, we tell everybody else what to do. That's an old model. You cannot have maximum impact if that is the orientation that you have. You have to figure out how to help people understand how to achieve success for themselves, not because you told everybody what to do, as though somehow you are smarter and know more than everybody else. You can move the needle, but you can't have transformative impact that way. You cannot. That is my belief. And so that is the reason why I'm making some of the changes that we're making. So providing a strong literacy background and foundation, critically important. Career pathways, critically important. Kids have to know what the possibilities are. Why do we go to school in the first place? We would bring, to Eagle Academy, we would bring guest speakers from a whole host of places and different industries, because kids have to see that. What is that job that you have? Robert Smith, the richest black man in the country. We brought him to meet the young men at Eagle Academy. We did it virtually. He talked to thousands of kids. And they ask you, how much money do you make? And anybody knows, if you bring people in from various industries, what are the kids? That's the first question the kids always want to ask you. And what do people respond? Well, it's not about how much money you make. It's about having a job that you feel really fulfilled and the things that you're doing. And within 10 seconds, you know what the kids hear? Wah, 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 wah. Right? So we tell everybody that comes, you better be real. We're not here to play games. We didn't just bring you here just to do a dance. You may not have to tell people the exact amount of money that you make, but you have to help them understand what are the ranges of possibilities financially, real talk, so that they understand, you know what, that's an interesting possibility for myself. So that's going to be a big part of what we do, is demystifying this process, helping kids. We visited Rikers Island recently, and I'm seeing a group of young men, and they're fully engaged in learning all of this, HVAC and plumbing and carpentry, and they were excited about what they were doing. And I said, why did you wind up here? And they all talked about, school like not being the place that fully engages you. And kids get bored and disengaged with school. And when they ask their teachers, why are we doing this? They don't get good answers. Because very often the teachers don't know either. We're all going through what I call the routinization of going to school. And we do it well. But why do you go to school? What is the purpose of your education? We graduate so many children who never take part in this democracy in a really proactive way. Millions of Americans who never vote, have no idea about the local races that are happening, couldn't tell you who their congressperson is, their city council person, the difference between your state senator, your state assembly person. And I'm not just talking about kids, I'm talking about adults who have no clue. Some of you may be reminded, remember when Jay Leno, he was the head of The Tonight Show, and he would do this walk down Hollywood Boulevard, and he'd stop people walking in the street. Remember they called it jaywalking? And he just asked folks just random basic questions about American history or civics, and we got the most ridiculous answers, and people would get a good laugh out of it. The part of it that's not funny is those are all high school graduates that we produce, who have no clue. So we produce young people who civically are not engaged. They don't know what's going on. They've never opened a bank account. We don't teach them financial literacy. We don't do all of the things that really matter. But yet we will test you to death and standardized testing and just walking you through all kinds of things that don't really matter deeply. I'm not saying that they don't matter at all, but they can't be everything. We have to engage kids in much more authentic learning experiences that make a real difference. And I think we can do that. I want to ensure that we have a student government in every school in New York City. I want to make sure kids are debating the issues of the day. Gun control, climate, what's happening to our environment, to our planet. Kids should be studying these issues. But very, very often so, we don't have time for that. We don't have time for the real world. Because we've got this curriculum that you've got to follow to get ready to take your tests. I believe that we have to reimagine all of it, including how we are assessing our kids. Now, we work within the form and function of state government as well. But I think even at the state level, there are lots of signs that, particularly coming off the pandemic, people are starting to recognize we can't go back to doing it the way that we were doing it before. It's not, it hasn't rendered enough success for us. Kids don't get it. So we want to do things very differently. This is just the beginning. The second pillar is around scaling, sustaining, and restoring what works. There are a lot of wonderful and amazing things that are happening in our schools, and you would never know it. Because the public narrative is, there's a handful of charter schools that are doing great work, and then too bad if you have to be one of the parents sending your child to a public school. Nothing could be further from the truth. I have visited, since I've been chancellor, I've visited over 40 schools in the 4 months that I've been here. Some of the most amazing work, it would blow your mind, that nobody knows about other than the people that just happen to go to that school. Whether it's the social, emotional learning work of a school that I visited on Staten Island, that I said, every school in New York City should see what these people are doing. The only people that know are just the people from that neighborhood who go to the school. Bayside High School, where the mayor graduated. Comprehensive high school. But every student in there takes career and technical education courses, exposing them to a whole host of different possibilities. Schools that have debate, which I think is one of the most just critical programs that we could really have, where you learn critical thinking, writing, research. It develops your confidence, competition. There's so many just good things that are wrapped up in debate. And there are schools who are doing it really well. Everybody can learn from those schools. So we're going to be creating a portal. We're going to create a mechanism for schools to learn from each other, first of all, because schools are grappling with different ways to get better. And we never share with them what the school around the corner is already doing. They were where you were 2 years ago. They figured some things out. Let's share. The system was designed for winners and losers. I don't ascribe to that. I believe that everybody can and should and needs to win. This nation cannot win if we still have a school system full of winners and losers. Because when you have a school that is losing, those are children that are losing. That's a community that loses. And it doesn't have to be that way. But we have to reimagine how we do it, and we have to re-engineer how we move in the first place. And the second part of the reason why I think it's really important to scale, sustain, and restore is because we need to build trust back with our parents and our families. Over the last 5 years, 120,000 families have left the New York City public school system for a number of reasons. I'm not here to be an ideologue about anything. I'm here to listen to parents and to be responsive to what they've been asking for. I'll give you a case in point. One of the things that we just announced a week or so ago was the restoration of the gifted and talented programs here in New York City. There are a lot of people that don't believe in gifted and talented programs. Well, Mr. Chancellor, do you believe in gifted and talented programs? What I believe is really irrelevant in that regard. Thousands of families have told us that's what they want to see. So who am I to stand here and just deny the parents who are saying, we want to have these accelerated programs? That doesn't mean it's representative of the entire system. The bigger part of my job is to ensure that there's quality classrooms in every school in the city. That's the main part of the job. But you can do that and still have some specialized high schools. You can do that and still have some gifted and talented programs. You can still do that and have some accelerated programs and other special programming. This is a system with 1 million kids. This is New York City. We ought to be able to do this and that. But we have created this scarcity model where everybody's fighting over just a handful of spots that we think are the ticket to the American dream. We should be creating multiple pathways to get where we want to go. With $38 billion, don't you think we should be able to provide a few more programs? I certainly do. And so that's what we're committed to. The third pillar is around prioritizing wellness and its impact on student success. And this is a personal thing really from the mayor in many ways, because if you know his personal story around how diet really helped change his life and save his life, and how poor eating habits and the fact that we don't really teach kids well enough about healthy eating, how ultimately many of our kids become poor eaters. And then that feeds into a medical industry where we continue to pay. See, it's this continued thing, as the mayor says, an upstream and downstream model. If you get it right early on, you don't have to spend as much on the other end. Teach kids the benefits of healthy eating. Now listen, they're not gonna like it in the beginning. It's a process. When the kids used to show up at Eagle Academy on the first day of school, even during our summer programming, the kids would come and I'd tell everybody, you're all gonna have breakfast and lunch when we're in the school. And the kids, it's not cool to have like school lunch, right? So it's culturally, it's like, oh, I don't do school lunch. And yet the kids are hungry, but they can't eat it in front of all their friends because it's not cool. And this is not a recent thing. This goes back to even when I went to school. So what I would do is every year when the summer programming, I told all the kids, I don't care whether you want it or you don't, everybody's going to get online and take a tray and come back to your table. Oh, this principal, he got us in here making everybody line up and go get this food. I don't want to get this food. And I would do that. And I only had to do it for maybe 3 or 4 days. Because once they got it, now they're sitting down. He's like, do you believe this principal? He's making everybody eat lunch. He's making everybody eat breakfast. Now they're eating. I don't really want to eat it. It's okay. When the lunch period is over, breakfast is over, you can throw it in the garbage if you want to. After 4 days, everybody was eating. You follow me? It's a strategy. And think about that. There's other schools that struggle with how do you get the kids to eat breakfast and lunch? Right? That's what I mean when I say scale, sustain, restore. Every school across New York City has at least one thing that they can teach another school about how to do. So you imagine if everybody has their hand up. I got something. And everybody is sharing what everybody else is doing. And everybody adds another piece to what you are already doing. Everybody gets better. That's the point. The final piece is, and when I say health and wellness, we're talking about meditation, mindfulness, healthy eating, the great outdoors, ensuring that our kids get exposed to lots of different things, and not just that education somehow exists within the 4 walls of the room. I mean, this is a majestic room. But as majestic as it is, there's a lot of great stuff going on right outside, including some fresh air. Cultural institutions, parks. New York City ought to be their classroom. In fact, at Eagle, we would send every year kids to travel around the world because we told them you can't be a global citizen with a neighborhood mentality. You need to see yourself as a citizen of the world. Well, it's hard to do that if you don't provide opportunities. That's what we're going to do. We're going to continue to provide opportunities. And the final piece I would tell you is engaging families as true partners, where families get to help to co-create policy and a path forward for their children. I've met with every deputy chancellor in the last 25 years before I became chancellor. I talked to all of the chancellors, Rudy Crew, Dennis Walcott, Joel Klein. I talked to all of them. I basically interviewed everybody to say, if I become the chancellor, what do I need to know? And Bob Lebetsky was never chancellor, but he worked at Tweed. He was a network leader. He's one of the great educators. Bob will tell you, I picked his brain many, many times. And when I spoke to Joe Klein, he said to me, one of the things I think I did not do as well as I would, in retrospect, would like to, is how I engage parents and families. And parents and families often feel disrespected. This idea that you get some smart people who get in the room down at Tweed, we'll make the decisions for you. We know what's best for you. And then we roll it out. It's something that I fundamentally disagree with. I've said I will not make any major policy decisions unless you see me at the microphone surrounded by parents and families. Not as a photo op, but as people who have helped to create this moment and why we are here. I do not intend to ever suggest that I have all the answers, because I do not. And I'm very clear about that. What I am also conscious of is that the answers exist in the larger body, including the young people themselves. And when you ask them, they will tell you. But in order to ask them authentically, you have to deeply respect who they are and what they represent. You see, if you see a single mom who's only making $30,000 a year and she's got 3 kids and she's just struggling, you know, there's some people who would have a tendency to think that you don't have much to offer. I beg to differ. So I'm the representative for them. If nobody else is going to be a champion for them, I will be a champion for them. Because the great ideas that I got a lot of credit for at Eagle Academy came from teachers. They came from students. They came from parents. They came from community members. In many ways, I was the face of the school, so people said, Mr. Banks, you're brilliant. I wasn't brilliant. I just listened to what the people said. And the people will bring you brilliance if they know that you are genuine in expecting that from them. But if they see you as Oz, the whiz, the great Oz, you're the all-knowing, everybody else puts their pens down and they stop thinking. Since you're the one with all the ideas, we'll just sit and wait to do what we're told. This system that we're in as a public school system is a system that has for far too long put their pens down, stopped thinking, and they're waiting for the people at headquarters to tell them what to do. They've been conditioned that way. I'm taking them through a reconditioning process. One of the first decisions I made was I eliminated the executive superintendents. So at schools, you have a principal. Above the principal, you have a superintendent. Above the superintendent, several years ago, they put in executive superintendents. Why? I couldn't tell you. I think it was just a whole nother level of bureaucracy. I'm sure there was a rationale for it. But it did not render enough benefit to maintain it to the tune of millions and millions of dollars. So I remember when I brought all the superintendents in the city together, and I told them in the room at Tweed, and they had been together in almost 2 years because of the pandemic, and they were all in the room, and I said, we will be eliminating the position of executive superintendent, and the whole place erupted in a standing ovation. Like, yes, we've finally been heard. Then I leaned in on the table and looked all of them in the eye and said, the question is whether or not you're going to be here as superintendent when the dust settles. To which it was a very different response. I've asked every superintendent in the city to reapply for their position if they're so inclined. Many senior principals in the New York City school system were making more money than the superintendents who were supervising them. We changed that immediately. We boosted the salary for superintendents. And I told, so the most senior principal in New York City will not make more money than the person that is supervising them. It made the job much more enticing. We're going to be eliminating the what's referred to as the BCOs and all these other administrative offices. I am putting all the bodies back into districts and working for superintendents. The superintendent is going to be the linchpin for me. That's going to be the person that we're going to hold most accountable. That's the person where when parents want to meet, you should be first meeting with your principal and then your superintendent. You shouldn't have to be lining up like they are now. Everybody wants to meet the chancellor. Everybody wants to meet with the chancellor. Everybody wants to talk to the chancellor. They're bypassing everybody else because the system is dysfunctional. If it's working the way it's supposed to work, I should be the last line of resort, not the first. If everybody needs to meet with me, then why do I need all the rest of these people working for me? So we're going to change that. We're going to fortify it. We're going to give principals are going to have, superintendents are going to have more authority. They're going to have greater budget. They're going to have more bodies that they can deploy to the schools. They're going to have what they need to be supportive to the schools that are there for them. But not every school is going to be there for them because we're creating an empowerment zone, an autonomy zone, a place for principals who are the most innovative, creative people in the system, who are they're not going to have to be managed by anyone. They will get a different level of support. But part of their responsibility in being in that zone is to help to ensure that another school is going to make it in that zone with you. Be your brother, your sister's keeper. So again, it's not enough that you are all that. We want to tie your success to the things that you've learned to help another school to get better so that they don't have to be managed from on high. And many of these ideas are coming from a whole host of people. Most of it is coming from Bob Lebetsky, but some of it is coming from other people as well. That was meant as a slight joke, Bob. And what I mean by that, when I talk about Bob, I have great respect for him because Bob Lebetsky is an out-of-the-box thinker who has gone through a system and has said, not only is the system dysfunctional, let me tell you why, and let me give you some suggestions on what you can do to change it. Those are the people that I'm drawn to. Now, it may not come out quite the same way as if Bob did it, but I'm listening because ingenuity, creativity, are the kinds of ways and approaches that I think the system needs. I'm not interested in being the chancellor just for the sake of being the chancellor. As I told you before when I started, I was fine. I'm not a 30-year-old who's just trying to build my career and build my brand. You know what I mean? Like I've had a career. This system has been good to me. I'm fine. If I left tomorrow, I'm good. It's the best way to have this job. So now I'm completely freed up to be as supportive as I can possibly be to everyone else in the system. And that is what I'm fully committed to. Looks like Q in the back. I'm not sure if that's Q. Is that Q? No. I saw somebody who looked like somebody who works for us down at Tweed. So anyway, listen, let me just say, it is my real pleasure to be here with all of you. I'm going to give my level best at doing this work on behalf of the kids. The mayor kind of pulled me into it, a little bit of kicking and screaming. Not so much screaming, but a little kicking. But I'm going to tell you, it is the most amazing job. I love being the chancellor because every day when people would say to me, I mean, it's one of the biggest jobs and all the issues and all the challenges. That's not what I see. I see possibility. And I see a system that needs desperately to change. And I see the potential that it can actually change. And I wake up every single day with that same spirit inside of me for change. I see every young person as a masterpiece who may be needing some level of revision, but a masterpiece. That's what I believe in. That's my code. I've given it everything that I have. I'm going to try to invoke the village to help me to do this. And together, we can be successful. And not just for success' sake, but because our nation needs us to be successful. And if we get it right here in New York, it can be a beacon and a blueprint for the rest of the nation. It has always had that power and potential, and I intend to help get us there. Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate you all. Thank you.
So we've got time for some questions. I know there are people online. People in the auditorium who want to ask a question can line up at the microphone.
My name is Peter Goodman. I'm president of the Educational Alumni at City College. Thank you for naming Dr. Cashin. I work with her. I just spoke with her earlier today, and she's a spectacular woman who has spent a lifetime trying to make changes. For years, I've been encouraging various chancellors to start a Habitat for Humanity high school. Teach kids half a day in school, half a day to build houses in the community. They all said, great idea. And then, of course, it's too complicated. We never got around to it. I loved your speech. I think you absolutely right on target. Some schools need a strong superintendent. Other schools are highly creative. We have the Affinity District now, which has wonderful schools. But taking the great ideas and bringing them down to the classroom, as you understand, is an enormous challenge. You mentioned CTE once. I'm a huge believer in CTE because our kids can get out of high school and get a job. Tens of billions of dollars in infrastructure are being spent by the federal government. Industry is desperate for kids with these skills.
That's right.
And while college is great, for many of our kids, we should do everything possible. But for many other kids, they can't afford to go to college. They have to support their family.
That's right.
So again, I think find a superintendent who can be a CTE superintendent, somebody who can organize all this and bring it to fruition.
Yep.
Because again, my son is a supervisor in Brownsville. He, all his kids, as they graduate from middle school, he encourages them to go to a CTE high school.
Right.
Because he says, they live in Brownsville, when they get out of high school, they need a job. So, and I think we all agree with that,
Yep.
but now we have to bring that to fruition.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much. I am a huge fan of yours, because if the institutions succeed, the leader must succeed, and the leader must lead. And I think you're the right person now. Thank you
I
very much.
appreciate you saying that. Thank you so much. And I knew I liked you when you had that Mets hat on. And, you know, I was a school principal, and thank you so much. I was a school principal in the Bronx for many years, but I was a Mets fan. And I remain a Mets fan. And I grew up in the days of Tom Seaver and Tommy Agee and Cleon Jones, and we've gotten off to a good start this year. So I appreciate it. That's right. But you are absolutely right. And please give my best, please, to Dr. Cashin as well, while you're at it. I made a note of this, and I'd like to give you my card, and maybe we can follow up as well. But even though I only mentioned it briefly, I want you to know this. It is our North Star. The creation of career opportunities, which will encompass career and technical education as well, is real for us. And that we're going to be spending, you're going to be hearing in the coming days major announcements about that. This is not your granddad's CTE world today. When, you know, back in the day, they said just go take shop classes. And you know, and that was also fraught with a lot of racist issues as well. You know, when they told all the smart white kids, you go to college, and tell all the black kids, you go do something with your hands, right? So the people are very leery about that. Language is important around that. But you're talking about jobs now where kids can come right out of high school, whether they're going to go to college or not. They can make $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year right out of high school if they get the proper certifications and the skills, and they can still go to college if they want. That's what I intend to do. We've had a lot of young men from Eagle Academy who we sent to college, a number of them who didn't finish, and many of them who, if they didn't go to college, you know, what did we do to prepare them, to give them all that they needed to be able to get off mommy and daddy's payroll and be able to take care of themselves? That's important to me. And you're going to see a lot of work and a lot of investment in that space. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Well, I have my certification from CCNY, so I volunteer to be a superintendent for the CTE program. I'm just doing great. Well, good evening. I'm Francisca Villar-Harding. I am a proud graduate of the School of Education twice. I did my science education here and my ed leadership with Dr. Lubeski. Wow. I was also a student teacher with you at Young Eagle Academy, so you were my first introduction to education.
Wow.
So I'm proud to be here with you.
Thank you.
I am a product of New York City school systems. I'm also a parent in the school system, and I'm an educator in the school system. Right now, I'm in South Bronx Academy, Early College Academy, Sebecca's. I'm in the South Bronx. I'm honored to be at that school. It's a small school, but it has many potential for the amazing community it serves. I'm a proud believer that through education, you can literally reach the stars and transform the world. But my question is, what are we doing to include parents more in our children's education? As an educator right now at Sebecca's, we have a student, I'm gonna say her name is Amaya.
Sure.
Amaya is a brilliant young lady.
Right.
But she has so much social emotional disturbance because of her community. I'm from that very same community, and I got out because of education.
Sure.
So my question is, how do we support these students? This student needs a lot of social emotional support.
Right.
She needs a lot of ABA therapy.
Sure.
She needs a lot of probably literacy support.
Yep.
But our school doesn't have not even the funding or the staff to support it.
Yeah, you know, as part of some of the changes that we have to make, and schools are different, right? One school to the next. One school may have all the supports that they need as it relates to that, another school does not. And so we got to figure out where those gaps are, where we share. That's part of the reason why I'm going to be counting on these superintendents to help me tremendously, because they're going to be a little bit closer to the action. And then and as you push further down into actually where the principals are, who are really the leaders on the ground in their individual schools, we have to lift all that up. I've been meeting regularly with with dozens and dozens of principals around the city. But we got to mine all of that information in a way that benefits everybody. So the first thing that I have to do is, I'm not going to tell you it's a direct response for what you're raising, but what I'm trying to do is to refine the Department of Education and central offices as again, as an ecosystem of support. So when you come with a real issue, we are able to figure out where to solve for some of those problems. I will certainly give you my card as well, if you want to follow up on a specific issue, but also, and it applies to the first part of your question as well, which is around how do you engage parents. I've spent more time in my 4 months as Chancellor meeting with parent groups than anybody else. There are so many different parent groups. It's amazing that I kept hearing this whole refrain of the parents are not involved. And you've got PAs, PTAs, SLTs, DLTs, you've got CPACs and CEC. I mean, there's like dozens of parent groups. But I think part of the reason why people oftentimes don't feel heard is because they think that they're being taken through the motions, but not really heard. There's a difference in being respected. We've made all these suggestions, groups that would tell me, we put forth all of these proposals to the DOE, and we don't even get a response, right? It's disrespect. So that is going to change. That's why I said it's one of my 4 pillars. And so we're going to be engaging parents in a much deeper fashion. So I came here in the middle of the school year. So what you're going to see in terms of real deep vision, this is just a heads up. But you're going to really begin to see it as we go into the summer and the next school year. We've been able to spend these few months really just meeting, talking, laying things out, framing the vision. But you'll really be able to hold us to account as we go into the next school year. That'll be my first school year that we kick off.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Artila Islami. I am an undergraduate student here, and I am going to be am in the major Science Learning and Public Engagement. It is a new major that started about, I believe, a year ago, and it's predominantly in informal education. Now, as we are focusing on informal education, we're also looking at where we can bridge the gap between why there's so many nonprofits, right? Mm-hmm. So one thing I'm also noticing a lot is that, sorry, I wrote my question on my phone.
It's okay.
Is that what is the plan for teachers who are burnt out? We know that we have this great plan that we're doing these 4 pillars, but I've worked closely in schools. I've taught a lot in different public schools. But one thing I'm always noticing is that these teachers are burnt out. We have 1 teacher to 30 children. They are getting degrees where they're getting paid $30,000 to $40,000 a year. They're expected to get more degrees, but are still not necessarily getting the same pay. Mm-hmm. So one thing I'm noticing is, what can we do to help these teachers out?
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. So I would tell you this. First of all, none of this happens without our teachers. And I meet with teachers also on a regular basis. I want to return the joy to teaching. You know, a lot of times we talk about the students and the joy of learning, but the joy of teaching. So when the question was raised earlier, even about the standardized exams, right? This whole idea around, standardized exams. Standardized exams also sometimes have a very kind of deleterious impact on teachers as well.
Absolutely. Who
feel like I can't even do the wonderful things that I really want to do because we're made to do this. So I'm going to try to help teachers by changing a lot of that as well. And I think, imagine a system where we really unleash the power and potential of teachers to give them much greater say also in the work that we're doing. That's where I want to go. And it's a huge body of work for us to get there. But I think help is on the way. I've been very happy to find out that not as many teachers are leaving the system as sometimes you may hear in the public narrative. I know people are worn out. Most people are worn out. This pandemic has taken a tremendous toll on everybody. Mm-hmm. We talk about mindfulness practices for kids. We need mindfulness practices for teachers. And a lot of them are doing that. And again, as I visited schools around the city, I've been very pleasantly surprised to find out how many teachers are engaging in mindfulness which is a powerful way to center yourself in the presence of stress and trauma. And I think that's going to be really important as well. When you hear me talk about career pathways for kids, I also think about how wonderful that's going to be to train up more teachers in that place and space. Most teachers have no idea what it means to work at a place like Google or Microsoft or a whole host of other industries. Most teachers were great students. They loved kids. They went to school for education. They came back, but have not done much outside of the four walls of school. So think about how much we can help our teachers to learn and grow by also exposing them to what that real world looks like that we say we're preparing our kids for. We say that, but very often we're really not. And it's hard to prepare, even as a teacher, kids for industry if you've never been exposed to that yourself. To have teachers engage in conversations with the scientists who are sending rocket ships up into space. Imagine how exciting that would be. Maybe not for all teachers, but certainly some of the science and math teachers, I'm sure, would love to be engaged in that kind of conversation. In enhancing a level of skill and training and joy and wonder for our teachers has the same impact on them as it has on kids. We should, our schools always say we are learning institutions, but a lot of times that's not the case, especially for the teachers. We don't provide a lot of opportunities. So I'm going to be working real hard to do that. I appreciate you for asking the question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chancellor, if you have time, we'll just finish up the line and then that'll be it.
Oh, you got it. Very good.
Thank you. Hello. Hi. My name. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
My OCD is killing me with this.
Go ahead. All right. Thank you. All right. Hi, my name is Evelyn Barones. So I'm actually from the Media and Communication and Arts program here in City College, but I am taking a course with Professor Hazel Carter for developing programs of nonprofit. And it's been amazing. And I'm from the Bronx, and I'm a Yankee fan.
It's all right. All right.
Okay.
I love the Yankees too.
I can't take that from you anymore. We did not really practice this real quick, but it's actually coming from the question that she started talking about, which is the teachers. And I understand that there's going to be a lot of changes happening within the next year. And as changes happens, a lot of people are scared of changes.
Sure.
And that's the reason why we don't progress, because we don't know what's next and what's changes.
Right.
So we also have these tendencies, and I love all professors, and but everybody's different. Some professors are willing to see a new way of teaching. Sure. Other professors are very stubborn, and they want to stick to it's true, but they want to stick to their ways. So then this kind of goes to how you were saying that they will be exposed to learning new things, they will be exposed. So we're not only going to be exposing the students, but we're also going to be exposing teachers.
Yes.
But you had mentioned something that we should invest in teaching our kids or the students by 3 years old to read, because at that level, at 3 years old is the level that
Third grade.
Third grade, yes, correct. That they are able to retain, I believe, and to whatever they learn. So how would that ideology apply for teachers as well? How will it be to basically try to teach something new to somebody that has already known something for so many years, not 3 years ago?
Yeah, well, no. I think, first of all, the first part of your question around change, people are generally resistant to change. They're more resistant to change that comes from the top down. They're less resistant to change that comes from the bottom up. And so a lot of the change approach that we're having is going to enlist the best thoughts and ideas from the teachers themselves as well, right? So I don't want a one-size-fits-all school system. Now that's an easy thing to do. Everybody does this for all, that for all. I'm not a big supporter of that. I think schools are unique places and diverse places. They all need to have a common thread that connects us and a standard, but I think schools are unique places. So listen, I don't think that the change that we're talking about bringing is the kind of thing that's going to cause people to run out of the school system. I think actually quite to the contrary. People are going to see change that's happening here as authentic change and real change that I think most folks will embrace. We will see. But as it relates to otherwise, you know, in particular around the teaching of reading, we're going to see how this plays out. What I do know is that what we've been doing has not worked.
That we know.
Across the board. And so if you start from that place, I think that it's a bit of a whiteboard for me in terms of what are some of the things that we can do. My deputy chancellor for teaching and learning, Carolyn Quintana, is out of the country right now at a national literacy conference that's completely focused on dyslexia. And the mayor, again, talks about this quite a bit because he suffered from dyslexia as well. And the amount of students that we have in our schools, the number of students that we have in our schools who suffer from dyslexia, that was either never diagnosed, or even when it was diagnosed, we didn't have the proper interventions for how to address it in the first place. That's going to be a new body of work for us as a system. You know, we had some things that were happening in small pockets, but we're going to shine a huge spotlight on that. Because there are a lot of, so you're going to be hearing some announcements in the coming days, maybe as early as next week, about some of the screeners that we're going to be using to identify those. But we also have to make sure our teachers are trained up properly. So there's going to be a lot of new learning that has to happen. Some of it is new old learning, right? Because a lot of things that were thrown out, over the years, we threw out the baby with the bathwater. People would ask me, why did they even get rid of that program? It was great. Model cities. I've had a few people tell that to me. Why did they get rid of model cities? Why did they get rid of this? Why did they get rid of that? You know the reason why we get rid of things that work? Is because you elect a new mayor and they appoint a new chancellor, and they want to put their name on their new shiny toy. And the other thing that was there that was working, but it wasn't theirs. You see? So that's what the political, the ego, all of that stuff. The mayor and I have said we're not interested in all of our new shiny toy. We're interested in things that work. And if you had something from a chancellor from 20 years ago that worked, we're trying to figure out how do we dust that off and bring it back. Because things that work, there's no reason to throw them out just because you weren't the one that created it. So what?
That's right.
So anyway, more to come, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And just real quick, I really enjoyed your speech, and I really wish that I was going to school right now, doing that 15 years ago, because it's amazing, and I'm pretty sure that the kids in the future are going to take advantage of it very much.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Chancellor,
Yes.
first of all, I met you many years through a good friend of mine, Buddy Johnson.
Oh, that's my guy. That's right. He's one of the founders of the Eagle Academy.
Absolutely, great guy. He told me, I'm going to take you to a great school. And so I just wanted to say congratulations.
What is your name again?
George Young. I'm a graduate here. I was a music teacher. I was a principal for 21 years in District 5. And when many years ago, about 22 years ago, we formed an arts committee that works very closely with Marie Palmer and your aunts in office. And the purpose of that organization was to make sure that all the children received equity, because we discovered that so many of our children would go from the first grade all the way to the 12th grade and never step foot in the Metropolitan Opera, never step foot Metropolitan Museum, Jazz at Lincoln Center, Carnegie Hall. So the focus of that committee is to make sure that all of our children know that not only Harlem belongs to them, but Carnegie Hall belongs to them.
That's right.
So we still have that committee in place.
Do you?
It's a really strong group of arts supporters and patrons, and we work very closely with Maria.
Very good.
And we would really appreciate it. We know you're busy, but we would really appreciate getting a meeting with you.
Oh, absolutely. That's done. No, you come on and make sure you get my card, but we'll follow up on that. I'm busy, but I'm busy doing things like that.
Right.
Right?
I was telling my other mentor over there, Joyce Coppin, I was just telling her.
I see Dr. Coppin over there. How are you?
Yeah.
So good to see you.
Yeah. So thank you. So we would really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, absolutely. Let's make sure that we do that, and I'll give you my card before we head out.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you. Listen, the arts, I didn't speak much about it today, but the arts speak to the soul.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And we will not come back in a whole way unless we are ensuring that our kids get the supports that they need through the arts, music, dance, theater, spoken word. All of those are the things that are going to, I think more than anything else, we're not going to tutor our way back to a better place. You have to lift the spirits of young people, and the arts is absolutely essential in doing that.
I'm glad to hear you say that the humanities are very important. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Good evening, Chancellor.
Good evening.
My name is Christopher Yon. I'm a faculty member in the School of Education here at City College.
Good to see you.
You touched on a lot of things that, I don't consider myself a yes man, but I heard myself in my head with so many things you said. Yes, absolutely. Yes, yes. One thing you touched on was, reading and reading failure that's occurring within our schools. And by a child entering, when they enter into kindergarten, there's predictive powers that we have, or, predictive factors we can look at to say, okay, well, there's a high probability this child will still struggle with reading failure. So if we're talking about this at kindergarten, then we're talking about how we need to empower parents, because there are some basic tools and strategies that we can give them that they can work on with their children at a very young age to help build some of those foundational literacy skills. Now, just wanted to say, but it's not the question I wanted to ask. The question I wanted to ask was what you were talking about, where children can see this light, career pathways, and I hold that in alignment with what we're seeing in terms of teacher shortage. So, when I look at this, teaching doesn't seem to be like the sexy job and that kind of thing that people kind of come to. So how do we switch that? And furthermore, how do we, when you think about professional sports, they're tapping children, ages 9, 10, putting them in AAU programs, all these different programs that basically, like you said, create that pathway, give them that light to say, you know what, this is what I'm going to focus on, so I'll stay away from this. How do we do that for teaching? How do we emulate what our professional teams do very well with young children? But how do we do that with young children to help them see this light of you can be a teacher?
Absolutely. And it's about the narrative that you play out. So first of all, the career to be the career pathway, we're going to create pathways around teaching as well. So when you hear, I've mentioned, Google and Microsoft and that kind of thing, but our best teachers and the folks we're looking for can come right out of our classrooms. But what you have to do is we have to make it sexy. We've not made teaching sexy. We look at all these other industries as being sexy. And then it's like, teaching is just teaching. If you just love kids and you have a passion for it, God bless you, that kind of a thing. But I think there's a totally different way that you can do that. There are various programs that we can put in place, and together working with the state and our state legislature as well to financially incentivize people coming into the teaching profession. But you can also put a certain buzz around it, which is a big part of what you're going to be seeing coming from us as well. All of this work that I've been talking about, what I wrap around all of it, we're going to change the narrative around public schools. See, we play defense all the time. Years ago, I remember when I was in the Bronx, Bob, and I had a superintendent who was to remain nameless. Joe, what's his name? But he was not a bad guy. I'm not knocking it, but I want to raise a point in saying, Johnny Cochran had just finished the O.J. Simpson trial, and we reached out for principal for a day, and we got Johnny Cochran to come and be the principal for a day at our school. Nice. And it was like weeks after the trial. So all the national media wanted to be there and he spent the entire day at our school. My superintendent was livid because Johnny Cochran wasn't the first person that had been to my school. I was always promoting the school and getting different people, Danny Glover, Percy Sutton. The media was showing up at our school all the time. And the superintendent called me in and said, I just want to say something to you. He said, my job is to keep us out of the media. My job is to keep us out of the New York Post. I said, that's why you never make the New York Times. The point I was trying to raise him is that if you play defense, you're losing. You can only win if you go on offense. So if you refuse to tell the good stories of the New York City public school system, guess what? All the negative stories will be ready and waiting for you. That's easy. That's what they will do. As the leaders of the system, you have to be proactive in telling the good stuff. Otherwise, people will assume it doesn't exist. It's critically important that you change the narrative. We are going to change the narrative. I'm remaking an entire communications department at Tweed, whose job is going to be to put the sexy back in education, if we ever had it. All right. And think about it, because you mentioned what they do with the NBA players, how they tap folks early on to get them in. That's narrative. There's storytelling that goes attached to that. Imagine if we had people like Idris Elba and other celebrities and some of the responsible rappers of the day, like coming back and telling the stories about their Miss Williams in the 3rd grade who changed their life. And we had that happening on a regular basis. Get involved in our public schools. We need you. Every week you got somebody else. We're sitting down at a podcast and having conversation with people who talk about how education transformed their lives. Get involved. There's a way for us to do that. But if we continue to move in the way that we've always moved, you will never get there. And we will continue to play from a deficit model. I don't want to play from a deficit model. If you want to win the game, you got to take the ball and you got to go on offense. And if you do that, you can completely change it. And we need to do that because we need our kids to believe in the possibilities of becoming teachers, educators, to see that as a viable opportunity for them. We need our parents and families to believe more deeply in our schools and what we're doing. And they will, but they won't if they continue to just watch the narrative play out the way that we allow it to play out, which is nothing but violence, shooting, gangs, bad test scores. Why would anybody want to be a part of that? But we can change it, but you have to be intentional. It doesn't just happen. I'm going to be very intentional about changing the narrative around our public schools. As they say, build it and they will come. I believe that.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Chancellor Banks. That was inspiring. And I want to say that, you know, having somebody in the leadership of the New York City public schools who is so optimistic about the future is really inspiring. And at City College, we want to help you. We're invested in your succeeding in your mission to improve the schools of New York. And I think the obvious place where we can help you is in the School of Education, training your teachers. But there are other places where I think we can help you as well. You talked about students wanting to see career possibilities, what's possible to them. We bring high school students to our campus all the time to show them what faculty do, what research is, what possibilities there are. We can do more of that. We train teachers, not just in the School of Education, but we have people who go into the high schools. We have programs on campus in the summers where teachers come to our campus to get trained and inspired in just the way you said. So we want to do, when I talked about the partnership at the beginning, that's the partnership I'm talking about. We want to help you in your mission to help the schools succeed. Your success is the success of the students who come to us. You talked about the students who are at the bottom, in the worst shape. The students we see are not there. They're the ones who are successful in your schools, but still they come to us underprepared for college, and you are going to lift everybody. Not everybody is going to go to college. Just isn't going to happen, and it shouldn't happen. We also have programs that you talked about Charlie Rangel. We have a brand new Rangel Center on campus, which is meant for workforce development. It is just for the kinds of kids who come out of high school not ready to go to college, but they do need jobs and they need training, and we're setting up to train them for the infrastructure jobs of the 21st century, wherever it is we are. So, you know, I really want to thank you for your words, for your enthusiasm, for your optimism, and I want to thank the audience for their engagement, and we wish you the best of success, and let us know how we can help. Before I let you go, there are food boxes in the back to grab on your way out. Oh, I also wanted to say that there were 150 people listening to this presentation online. So there are food boxes in the back that you should grab on your way out. Don't make me make Chancellor Banks come up here and tell you to get a tray. Just go grab one on your way out because we don't want them left over. Thank you, everybody.